When you're talking with someone, and Holly was just saying this to me, are you just listening to them and responding, or are you really starting to understand not just where they're coming from, but how they're feeling? That's what we want to explore in today's show on Open Heart. I'm Ravi Tangri, and I'm here from Halifax, and this is my co-host, Holly Duckworth, for Presence. Holly?
Hello, Ravi. It's great to see you and great to share with our viewers and our listeners another great show on presence, how to live and lead consciously. And the more that we unpack this topic of leading conscious lives and living conscious lives, it's just an opportunity for us to step into our open hearts. And you're right, I did have a really fascinating, wonderful experience with a colleague yesterday where he was reflecting back to me, Holly, I'm having a challenge communicating with you because I feel like I say something to you and then there's this pause and delay before you respond. And I had to go into my own inner processing, my mind, my heart, my spirit, my energy. It's okay, what's he experiencing? What do I think is causing that? And what I realized was this gentleman has such a unique vibration with mine, or we have such a great friendship together that I'm opening my heart to his feedback. We were actually reviewing some documents, and he was giving me some constructive feedback, which some people that would be really hard to hear. And in order for me to fully grasp that, I had to literally hear it come in my ears, force it to bypass my ego that's saying, no, this feedback is bad, and open my heart to say, what could be here? And that, for me, takes a little bit of a second, but I think that's the skill that we're talking about on today's show, opening your heart to the possibility of something greater in your business, in your family, and in your life.
And I think, that really comes back to the title of the show. It's presence. How can we be fully present versus just responding in a conversation? And last week we were talking about listening to understand someone. So it's one thing to intellectually understand where they're coming from, but now it's about deeper about how do you understand how they're feeling. And so this show is going deeper into that you process we introduced a couple of weeks ago, about going deeper from open mind that we talked about last time to open heart. And
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead, Holly.
So when we talk about open heart, we want to step back and kind of define it a little bit. An open heart, as we're looking at it on the show, is being kind, being benevolent. I love the word courage. Courage comes from the Latin cor, heart. And how can we as human beings in a doing world be more human and more present when we come from a place of that core heart? I had the opportunity to speak with another friend who I haven't seen in many, many years this week. And she said, Holly, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. I can really tell that your studies and your work are bringing you to a peace and a patience and a solidness within ourselves, or within, in my case, myself, because of really working on this area of opening the heart, opening my heart personally and professionally. And that takes the recognition that coming from your heart is not about being weak, but it's actually about tapping into a deeper strength within you and within the people that you choose to share your presence with. And we always loved the double entendre: presence, Presence, or your ability to be, and presents, TS, that we do give ourselves as a present to those projects and people, family, personal or business, that we open our heart to.
And I think in our society, we are often so very guarded. We hold ourselves at bay. And open heart, another thing that comes to mind, another word for me, is being vulnerable. And that's always often seen as another thing of weakness and so on. But it comes back to, I do love that the root word of heart also is the root of courage. It is exactly what you said about being strong in who you are. Actually, there's I just thought of something. There's something that's coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend after, and I think it's happening all around the world. This project where you get together, and there are people that are gathering. I'm just looking up the event as I'm going forward, and they are. What you're going to do is you're going to pair off. And, the world's biggest eye contact experiment is called, on Saturday, October 29th. And you're just going to sit with someone and sit there and just stare into the other person's eyes for a minute. And that's incredibly powerful. I've used this in some programs, because we don't let ourselves be vulnerable in that way, right? We put up barriers. We don't make eye contact. And it's about how can you really open. And it's just not just open, but the other thing that's powerful about that exercise is that other person accepts you exactly as you are, not who you're trying to be. And it really is, just occurred to me, a really great example and a very powerful exercise, an open heart.
We often say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And I'm sure on future shows, as we move through head, heart, mind, and then next week the will, that we start to really deepen in our own soul journey. I met with another client this week, and we'd had several meetings together coaching, and I could sense a darkness in his eyes. There was something left that he wanted to share, and it hadn't come forward yet. And then in this particular meeting, that came forward, and you could just see a lightness in his eyes. And we talk in the opening of the show, lightness as light of weight, and light as in light coming through us. So as we step into opening our heart, we invite more light into ourselves and into the world.
Yeah. And so just to sort of frame this up a bit, what we did a couple of weeks ago, all of the shows this November are based upon a framework called the U. And the U is not something someone invented. This, while it comes from organizational changes, it applies personally as well to individuals, how we go through complex change, which is sort of like modern life, right?
Modern life, yes. And just for those listening, it's not November. These are the October shows.
Oh, sorry, the October shows. Thank you. Yes. I'm getting ahead of myself. So for those of you listening, I'll describe this. Those of you watching, I'm going to share a diagram of what the U looks like. Is that normally, if you were to imagine a sheet of paper that you're working with, normally, say on the top left, if you put an X of the paper, that represents where you are. And on the top right, if you put a circle or a bullseye, that's where you want to be. And normally things are happening so fast in life. What you do when you're here, you need to get there, you act and you respond and you jump across and you do whatever you can to get there. The trouble is, a lot of times, because we don't invest the time to find out what's really going on, we're dealing with a symptom. We're not really dealing with the root issue, the challenge that we've got. So what people have found is that really people are really effective at dealing with change. They go through this process. This wasn't invented. This was just observed as a common trend. This process that's shaped like a U. So if you were to draw a U between the X and the bullseye, with the top left of the U is just under the X, the top right is just under the bullseye with an arrow pointing up to the bullseye. Think of the U as a journey from where you are, the X, to where you want to go. Now, what it does at its simplest, the U slows things down so that instead of just reacting, we can respond. So the first step of the U going down the left-hand side of the U is what we call sensing. And that's really understanding what's happening, not just from your perspective, but from all of the players' perspectives around you. Then as you get all of this information, sometimes it can be almost overwhelming. You get to the bottom of the U where it's about presencing. That's really being present in all of this. It's not about logic or rationale. It's being able to sense all of this and start to understand what are the root issues that are really going on. And then you move up the right-hand side of the U to realizing. And the difference between following the U, slowing down, and jumping the U, just acting, is what some people call the difference between wise action and action. right? Because now you're acting on the right things. Now, the journey down the you, you can break it down into a couple of stages. The first, if you were to think of the top third of the you, roughly, is what we talked about last week's show, open mind. So it's about how do you understand other people's perspective. As you go deeper in the you, it's not just understanding where they're coming from, but it's really opening your heart and really understanding how they are feeling. What are the feelings that are driving those things that the other players are doing? So that's where we want to get to now, is this whole process of how do you go deeper, not just intellectually understanding where they are, but understanding what they are feeling and having the strength to be aware of that, to empathize with them in where they're coming from.
So, Ravi, I want to add and invite listeners to go back to listen to our show about how to deal with feelings and how to connect to feelings. If this is a topic you want to get more detailed on, feelings, again, we're a society that numbs ourselves with substances and distractions and TV and all that. They go back to that show on how to deal with feelings if you want to start looking at how can you utilize this you process. And I shared that story today at the beginning, that when this gentleman was saying he was having a hard time connecting to me, I had to go into my own feelings that might be vulnerable for some people. It was even for me. What am I sensing here? As the first step that allowed us to move in that little micro example through this process.
Yeah.
Using the you process too is about maybe bringing new languaging into your world too. That word compassion, compassion for yourself, compassion for the other person, and kind of breaking that word down too. That there's a passion in this world right now, and while you can watch the news and sometimes it's a little ugly or interesting or that, I think that all of this energy stuff is coming up so that we can open our hearts to the new possibilities of how we can connect human being to human being, whether it's via technology platform like this or face to face.
Well, and there's a lot of issues that organizations are running into now. How do you drive employee engagement? How do you get the younger generations engaged? All of these things are about this. People tend to think, oh, business is about you do the right thing, is logical, and keep all that mushy feeling stuff out. Sorry, folks, we don't have a work life and a home life. We got one life. Feelings come in, and it's about creating a space for that. I mean, I just came out of a meeting with this incredible organization I've had the privilege of working with, and that where we've been engaging the staff and drawing them in so that they can start. And some of the things they were talking about is about how they are feeling heard. They're feeling that they have a voice, that they can, and they're taking initiatives that they never did before because they feel safe. And that's, again, back to the feeling. You cannot policy this. You cannot legislate this. You've got to create the space that allows it to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you're experiencing that with the CEOs you're working with up in your region too. I interviewed the CEO of Home Advisor here in Denver, which was named one of the top workplaces in Denver for like the third or fourth year in a row. And when we were chatting, completely unaware that I had a show called Presence, I asked him, what's the number one thing you need in leadership today? And he said, absolutely being present with your employees, with your customers, with your mission that you're trying to accomplish. And I think that goes to show that these skills that used to be referred to as soft skills are now the differentiator skills that are allowing businesses to be more passionate, more powerful, and more profitable.
And the other thing that's coming up huge now is like customer service is something from the 90s. That's whole history. Now it's about customer experience. And you can only create those experiences that drive loyalty if you can truly be present with them and if you can engage them and understand where they're coming from and those what they're feeling that are driving the discomfort, where you can add value.
So we have a note here, Ravi. We were talking about the cognitive capacity. Do you want to share a little bit more about how using the you theory awakens one's cognitive capacity?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a quote that we have from um by a biologist, Humberto Mutarana, and I apologize, I probably bastardized that name. That love is the only emotion that enhances our intelligence. And it is, it's wonderful that emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence are things that are now also coming into the fore. Um, People will work hard and will work hard consistently only if they're truly passionate and engaged. You cannot force them to keep doing it. Um, the key is that if you want people to be engaged, if you want to have the maximum productivity, you've got to have the full person there. You cannot um, just have them going through the motions. That's why we have such a huge problem with presenteeism, because people just don't see the point. They're not engaged. They're not heard. They're not so to open up their full capacity, to build that cognitive capacity, it's how do you create the space to really let them feel that you're hearing them, that you're supporting them.
So for those who may not be familiar with the concept of presenteeism, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows absenteeism, right? No one's there. But presenteeism is, guess what? They're right at your desk, but hello, nobody home. They're totally disengaged. So people are present at work, but they're just zoning out or playing video games or whatever. Hence the growth in Candy Crush.
Candy Crush. Well, that quote has a word in it, love. And love and business are often words that should not, do not, could not go together. So, for a show called Opening Your Heart, maybe we should have a little dialogue back and forth on how do you look at love in the workplace? How do you define love, Ravi? I know both of us, we don't talk about it a lot on the show, but both of us are manifesting our soul partner, which is the traditional definition of love. But I think we have a pretty broad definition of what love means. And maybe we could share that with our listeners so that they can connect to how the open heart and love for us connects in relationship and relationship to work.
Well, I mean, at its simplest level, I think is, do you, just the term, do you love going to work? There are people, I was talking with a client who's working in an incredible organization, and she was talking to people, she used to work in the government department, who are talking to her and going, you're enjoying what you do? Really? And I mean, she loves it because it is one of these thriving, phenomenal. And do you get up looking forward to going to work, or do you just go, oh, what's the start to the day? And the people that you connect with, do you connect with them? Are you excited when you see them? Is it fun to be with them? People used to say, you do your job. That's your job. You just, what do you mean you want to be happy? Point. No. If you are there, if you're enjoying what you're doing, if you're enjoying the people that you're with, your brain opens up. You're more creative. You offer more. You put in more. But it's not just in work. Are you loving all you do? Are you running around trying to do everything, doing work, running around with the kids, doing this? And where are you in that? So are you present and fully, like if you're with your kids, loving that time when you are with them? Or are you thinking about the 10 other things you got to do? Are you, whatever hobbies you do, my love is dance. And I mean, for me, it's pure joy. I can't not dance and not be in joy. The things that you do, are you ticking boxes and going through the motion? How about for you in terms of?
Well, I agree with everything you said. I phrase it a little differently in that I think of, I often say love micro and love macro.
Okay.
Love micro meaning that intimate one-on-one love, like, soulmate love, like that traditional Valentine's Day love.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of the human language being so limited, at least in the English context, I say there's also love micro, which is that bigger sense of a force and a source greater than me that allows me to love my friends and my chosen family and my real family and you, the viewers, that there is no spot that love is not. And yet, for those people who may have a different definition of love, or a more limited definition of love is only between soul partners, man and woman, woman and woman, woman and man. I mean, we've got a whole new emergence of the various forms that love can take coming into our consciousness. And so as we explore that into the business context, I wanted to invite our listeners to expand and find the definition of love personally and professionally that works for them, so they can open their heart to experience that more.
And people may use different words, right? Caring and so on. But, do you feel supported in your work? Do your people feel supported? And that's what makes it safe for them to do more. And in your own life, do you feel supported and loved, or do you feel like you're going it alone? And that's the challenge, right? How do you open yourself to receive that? And I think that's what all of us are seeking at some level. So we'll wrap up sort of the concept here of opening your heart with the concept of remembering that no matter how much data you have, decisions at the end of the day are not rational, that we are emotional human beings. And that no matter how much of the data we get, at the end of the day, we're still going to make a decision based on the combination of that data and our emotional connection to the outcomes. Yeah. I mean, if let's say I see this amazing car, I fall in love with it and I get it and I come home, then I got to explain it to my partner. And it's like, oh yeah, it gets really great mileage. Yeah, sure. Right. And there's actually hard data that shows that corporate buying decisions, not just personal, corporate buying decisions, multi-million-dollar, are made on the basis of individual or group values, and then you find the data that rationalizes it. I mean, on the macro scale, you're going through that right now in America. Very emotional experience. This is not about rationality. There's a lot of emotions at play there, and that's what's driving it, right?
It is, yeah. This election will be fascinating, and it's fun to see the world respond, not just the Americans with a ballot, but the world truly responding.
Yeah.
So we have some tips in terms of how to think about opening your heart. And we're going to open up with just something very simple, but so profound, especially as we move into the season of fall and the season of gratitude. And that's opening your heart to humanity, opening your heart to community and to community service. November is generally in race consciousness, and in the North American culture anyway, this time to celebrate Thanksgiving and giving back. So you're going to see lots of community service, food drives, clothing drives, gift drives. That is a way that you can open your heart to both giving and to receiving. I feel so blessed that one of our family traditions at the holidays was always to go out at the Christmas season, open our heart, open our pocketbook and our wallet. And we, even as little kids, we'd go out and we'd purchase a little gift and we would donate it under the Christmas tree. And I know that those early seeds were planted in my heart, the power of giving and the power of receiving. So tip number 1, open your heart to community.
Yeah. And then let's go to, if you are in conversation with someone, this could be in work, it could be in another part of life, to really hear them. Now, there's a caveat here, is a lot of times people think if someone is upset, to show that we're upset, that we're understanding, and not that we're upset, to show that we're really understanding them, and we've got to feel just as bad as they do. And that's absolutely not the case. I mean, you can fully empathize with someone, but if you get into their emotional stuff and get upset at the things they're getting upset about, those things, they play on each other and you spiral downwards. There's no resourcefulness. I think the key to open heart, the key to vulnerability, is to be open and grounded in the strength of what you're feeling, and still being empathic and being able to understand where they're coming from. And that's the power of really hearing someone and feeling that. But you may or may not agree, but it lets you feel it while you still got your ground in your own strength. And in that way, you can be a lot more resourceful for them. If you get caught up in their stuff, you're not helping them. So that applies if someone is upset at work. That applies if someone's in a home situation or elsewhere, to really understand. And some of that, there's a lot to be curious, to ask questions. So what does that? So this is what I'm hearing. Is that what I mean? And what does that feel like? And not to solve it, particularly for guys. Guys tend to like to fix things, right? But just to hear and feel and start to understand and be curious. You're not resolving. It's just to be curious about it.
So Ravi's kind of blended a couple tips. Tip number 1 is open your heart to humanity. Participate in community service. Tip number 2 is listen, to really hear someone and to understand them. And then tip number 3 is asking for help and allowing yourself to be vulnerable to ask for help. And I'm actually going to add a bonus tip that dovetails off what you were saying there about being grounded too, Ravi, that I'm trying a new technique for my own presence practice. And that is when I'm at a meeting or in a conversation, taking the time to put both feet on the ground. And this may resonate, again, a little differently male to female because, obviously females tend to be more crossing their legs. But what I'm finding is when I'm getting ready to speak, even if it's at a meeting where it's a sit-down board meeting, that if I take that moment to firmly place my feet on the ground, become fully present in my body, that is allowing me to speak more clearly, more concisely, and open my heart to both giving the message I'm called to give and receiving the feedback. So there's a bonus tip for you as well.
Well, okay, and that made me think of one other thing actually too, is that if you are really having a heart-to-heart conversation with someone, get out of the border. You don't want a table between you. You don't want that. You want that space open. Go to a coffee shop, go for a walk, but some sit in chairs where there's nothing between you, because those barriers build up barriers to really opening up your heart.
Yeah, that's a great tip. So we have a lot of fun announcements for November. You mentioned November is coming very quickly. Yep. It's crazy to think this is show number 15, and we are already starting to think even into 2017. But tell us a little bit about next week's show and the excitement you have coming up for us in November.
Well, the next week's show, we're going to go right down to the bottom of you. The show is called Open Will, and it's about really presencing, how that comes into finding your way through that. Now, November, we're not going to tell you a whole lot, but there's going to be a little bit of shakeup in the way this show happens. We're probably going to be moving from Friday to earlier in the week. And we're finding a way to get some more value to you. We'll be telling you a bit more next week. But we're really excited about all the things that are coming together for the show. And as Holly said, we've been doing some planning through the rest of the year and into 2017.
And so because we are in this spirit of opening our hearts and opening the show to new opportunities, we would invite your feedback. So drop us an email, a tweet, or a text with your thoughts on how we can support you in growing your leadership presence into the new year.
Great. And have yourselves an amazing weekend. We're getting a big rainstorm up here. So it's going to be a bit of a wet Friday and Saturday. But wherever you are, I hope you have an amazing weekend where you can be totally present. And you too, Holly.
Thanks, Ravi. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye, all.